guys, welcome back. Sorry about that last video. My camera cut me off right after I said the word park, but I was going to wrap it up a little nicer than that, but my camera had other ideas, so excuse me for that. But we're back now. This is session 6. We're working our way right through. I'd love to know how you're feeling. Send me an email. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions, if you're feeling like you've got a lot to work on, then just leave this for a little while. There's no rush. All these skills, they'll be waiting here when you're ready. Or continue to watch through and just don't worry about implementing them yet with your little one. Just keep them up your sleeve, something to think about when you're playing, when you're learning with your little one. These are just things to consider adding in. So today we're working on our last 3 phonological awareness skills, so the pre-reading skills. These are the final 3. So these ones develop later. Many preschoolers won't develop these. Just having experiences with them is great because then they'll be familiar with the idea so that when they're ready, it'll click much faster because they've had this foundation of playing with these skills in some ways. So sound segmenting, sound blending, and deleting sounds. Those all develop later kindergarten, some not even until grade 1. But we'll talk about them because they are really important skills. So sound segmenting, the way I think of them, the way I think of their importance is that sound segmenting is stretching words apart. So I think of that as being an important skill for writing. So when children are writing a word, we want them to really stretch those words apart and hear each sound to get those sounds down on paper. Sound blending is kind of the opposite. It's squeezing those sounds together, blending them together. And that's an important one for reading. That's how I think of it. So they're sounding out the word k, at, cat. So they're able to blend those sounds together to say a word. And the final one, deleting sounds. This helps children see the core of a word or the word family within a word. So if you give them the word cat, and you are trying to get them to delete the first sound, they would then say at. And that leaves you with the word family, like the chunk at, which then is easy for them to manipulate. If they can write cat, they're going to easily be able to write bat or hat or read those words as well because they can see that core, the word stem. They can see that in the word. So we'll talk a little bit about each of those, just ways to play with them in your daily life. Let's start with sound segmenting. So that's stretching words apart to hear each sound. So your child would start with a word that's already all put together, normal, and they hear the word cat. And they're going to try to stretch it out and hear the 3 sounds. Again, it's still just sounds. They're not spelling the word yet. They're just hearing that it's k, at. So adding an action to it is really helpful. So often you can take an elastic and have your little one stretch it as they're saying each sound so they can start stretching that sound out. At. And they can say it nice and slow as they're stretching the elastic. Another good way is to put buttons down on a table, 3 buttons. And your little one flicks a button so they have an action to go with each sound. So, k, at. And they flick the buttons with each sound they say. It's a great way for them to really put an action. So 3 different actions for 3 different sounds. And the same with like kicking a ball. So getting the whole body involved because children really learn well that way. And to put 3 balls out and they kick 1 ball each time they say a sound. Really helps the mind to visually see that we are splitting these words apart, that there's 3 separate sounds in these words and we need to find them. Yes, so that's sound segmenting. Sound blending is the flip side of that, and that's so you're giving them a word that's already split apart. So you might say to them k, at, and so they might be able to build a tower. So they have 3 blocks, k, at, and they make their tower with those 3 sounds. And then they run their finger up the tower and they try to say those 3 sounds faster. So they go k, at, cat, cat. It's the word cat. It's like a little puzzle to try to solve. And you can see by these skills, they build on the ones we were working on last week and the week before. So again, these skills aren't necessarily for preschoolers. I'm just sharing them in case, since children all develop differently, some children might be ready for these skills. Otherwise, you'll know how to help them and support them in kindergarten by working on these skills alongside them when they're in kindergarten or when they are ready for them. Another way to practice sound blending, which my boys always loved, is the step and run. So you say a word really slow and you take big, slow steps. So, k, ah, t. And then as you continue to go, your steps get a little bit closer together and you say them a little bit faster. So it's k, ah, t, k, ah, t, k, ah, t, cat. And you try to keep your steps going nice and quick as you're saying each sound so that the word becomes nice and close together. So that's another way to practice blending those sounds together. Deleting sounds, so you have a word, we'll stick with cat, and you're going to take away, again, just like what we were practicing with, what were we doing last week? Oh, I have it over there. Sound identification. So this is kind of the flip side of sound identification. That was the foundational skill that we need for this, for sound deletion. So we might have 3 lines that we've put on a whiteboard, or I like using, you know, those plastic plates you can get at the grocery store, at the dollar store. They're disposable, but they're plastic. Those are great as whiteboards. You can use dry erase markers and they erase it really, really well. And they're nice and cheap. So you can put 3 dashes on that and then say the word cat. And your little one can point to the 3 dashes and say k, at. Then you can erase one of the dashes. The first one to start, again, just like with sound identification, you're going to start with the first sound, deleting the first sound. So you delete that first dash and they say the k in their head and then they say at. And they're left with at. So say the word cat, but don't say the k, and they would say at. And this is important. I think I chatted about that already, how it finds the word stem in the word to make rhyming. Again, this is another foundational skill. Rhyming is another foundational skill for this. They can then they'll be able to easily read and write all of these rhyming words because they can see the stem. They can manipulate the word in such a way that they can find the stem of the word. Another fun way to practice this skill is with silly songs. So we make up silly songs all the time. My kids are still little enough, well, the boys are, that they don't think it's weird yet that I do it. So we do like, there was a crazy fish. He lost his and became a crazy, and then they say ish. Or once they're good with the first sound, they're really getting a handle on that, we'll do the last sound. There was a crazy cat. He lost his ca and became a crazy t. Ca, and then became his crazy t. So the last sound is missing. So they will often do that. They'll go cat, t. And they have to say it themselves, and that's fine. It just shows you developmentally where they are, that they're not quite ready to do it all in their head yet. They need to say it out loud. So those are the 3 last phonological awareness skills that will really support your child's later reading and writing development. So just play with those skills in different ways as you go through your week this week. Start seeing about singing some songs and really just modeling it at this point until it's ready to start clicking for them. Okay, in math we're doing shapes this week. Shapes is always fun with kids. So sure, teach them that a square is called a square and a circle is called a circle. I mean, that's great. And a triangle is called a triangle, but also let them play and explore with those shapes. So tangrams are fabulous. You know, those little wooden shapes that you get. I don't even know where you get them. Probably the dollar store would have them. I don't know. And we always seem to have a ton of them in the classroom and at home. So I don't ever buy them because we have so many, but I'm sure they would be a good investment for you, for your little one, because it allows them to really explore. They really can explore what these shapes mean and how they fit together. So when you're playing with little shapes, and if you don't have the tangrams, you can just cut them out of construction paper as well. Cut out some triangles and some squares and some circles. And they can start to play with them. So you can challenge them and say, how many ways can we make a square? So they can use a square. They can also use triangles. Triangles can fit together to make a square. And you can have them just make pictures with the tangrams or the cutout shapes. And you'll see them start piecing triangles together to make hexagons or octagons. They'll start making all these amazing shapes. And this is just giving them the foundational knowledge for how shapes fit together and work together. Another way to play with this is using popsicle sticks. So have them make as many different shapes as they can out of popsicle sticks. And when they make them, you can count the sides with them. Wow, how many sides does that shape have? And you can count it with them. And then you can challenge them. Can you make a six-sided shape? What would that look like? Now, can you make a six-sided shape that looks totally different than that? And just challenge building. We talk about doing challenges with our little ones, but my kids and in the kindergarten classroom, they all love those challenges because it gives them a chance to do it and to succeed, which is a really great feeling for them. So playing with popsicle sticks, they're going to learn that they can't make a circle out of popsicle sticks, but they can make a triangle, and they can make a really big triangle, but it still has 3 sides. They might use 10 popsicle sticks, but it still only has those 3 sides. And just manipulating and playing with shapes in that way. I also chat about, in the course book, I also suggest going on a shape hunt where you walk through the neighborhood or when you're at the park and you're just trying to spot different shapes, and you can see if you can find a really big triangle, or how a house looks like a really big square, and how a roof might look like a really big triangle, and you can start seeing those shapes out in the real world. Okay, and the experience we're talking about today is crossing midline. So I talked about this a bit in the first video. I touched on it about how we need to give our little ones time to develop these skills, because there are things develop naturally in little ones. A child is not going to be born and immediately able to walk. That's not going to happen. There needs to be time. Muscles need to develop. Things need to develop and happen for that child to be able to walk. The same thing with academic skills, with reading and writing and math. They need to happen. Certain skills need to happen first before we can build on them. So one of the things is crossing midline is really important. So this is a skill you might not have thought about before, but it's simply taking one side of the body and crossing it over to the other. So I'm sitting right now with my legs crossed, and that's crossing midline. When you reach over, if I were to reach over here and pick up this piece of paper, I'm crossing midline. Anything that crosses from one part of my body over to the other. Reading does this. So when we read from left to right, that's you're crossing midline. Your eyes have to go across the page. In order to be able to do that, the part in the brain, the corpus callosum is what it's called, and it connects the two halves, the 2 hemispheres to your brain. That needs to be nice and strong. And when children are born, it's not. So it needs time to develop. So there are ways that we can strengthen that part in the brain and truly be giving our child's brain the foundation that it needs for reading, which is really cool. And we can do that starting really young when our children are toddlers, babies. We can be working on making sure this part of the brain is nice and strong. And you can do this every single day in the easiest of ways. Now that you know about it, super simple. Put a basket on one side of your little one when they're tidying up so that they have to reach over and put things in the basket. Or roll, when your child's sitting on the ground, roll the ball a little bit too far to the left so they have to reach over to grab it. Encourage them to try to see if they can roll the ball all the way around their body. That's crossing midline. Super duper simple things. Play with a tennis racket and a balloon when you're doing that activity that we talked about for syllables. In language, we chatted about that. Do that with a tennis racket and a balloon, and have your little one cross over when you're passing the balloon to them, so they have to reach from one side to the other side, the other hand, and they're just crossing midline. That's strengthening that important part of the brain. So super simple, but important to know about, right? So work on those skills this week as well. Find a couple ways that you might be able to do that this week. And the social skill I wanted to chat with you about, nice and quick, a great place to find these experiences is simply when you're grocery shopping. You're at the grocery store with your little one. Again, it's just thinking about these things in a little bit of a different way. So think, all right, we're going to go out. We're going to be around other people. What skill can my little one develop today? What can we work on a little bit? And don't do it all the time, but just if you're concerned about that, like I was very concerned about social skills with my little ones. for different reasons, but for my youngest, he was so painfully shy that I really started making a conscious effort when we would go out and be around people. I would have to think about it because it was so exhausting for him. It was really hard on him to go out and be around people. So I wanted to really get the most out of it. If we were going to go do it, let's try to really gain some skills from this. So when you're going to the grocery store, you can think about it's a busy place. So something as simple in the kindergarten classroom, children are going to have to put their coats on and put their mitts on, put their hats on in the hallway or in the cubby room with other people around, and it can feel a bit busy. And if they're not used to that, it can feel overwhelming. So addressing that by practicing that skill in a busy place with mom there being nice and calm and everything's good, and just reassuring them and being that calm for them so that they learn this isn't a stressful thing. It's okay. I can take my time and I can do it. And perhaps you're not relating to this at all. Perhaps your little one is going to have no trouble with that whatsoever. But I'm speaking to the moms who might be concerned about their little ones being worried or shy in situations like that. So, you're at the front door, it's time to go back out into the car, and okay, we need to put our hats and our mitts and our coats on. And so you just stand there, you squat down beside your little one, and you just give them time and give them that support and be nice and calm about it and encourage them to get their coat on. We've got to go out and let's work on that zipper. Can you do your zipper up? And people are walking by and it's busy. But it's a great time to practice skills like that, those independent skills in a real life situation that they're going to have to do that in school. Using a public bathroom, things like that. It's great to try that. So have your little one be in the bathroom with them, of course, but have your little one go into the stall by themselves. See if they can do up their own pants. Encourage them to try, again, in that really calm, nonchalant, mellow way. Encourage them to try to do those things independently. Washing their hands and then being all done. You could also use that opportunity to model asking for help. Oh gosh, where did they move the avocados? I can't find them anywhere. I'm going to go ask for help. And modeling that behavior. If your little one, my oldest, my daughter, she was so social. She would love asking people for help. So she would always be the one that would want to go ask the clerk where the avocados were. And that's great too. Like teaching them to wait. If the adult's already speaking with somebody, we have to wait till it's our turn. And just like social skills are everywhere. We just have to see them in order to help our